Start recording. And we should be going great guns now in the recording. For those of you that are watching this as a video, welcome. I'll turn the webcam back on here real quick just so you know that it is actually a live person. See, I'm sitting here talking, waving at you, so it's a live person. I'm Tom Lanou. I'm the instructor for this course. Actually, I've got 3 sections of this, so there may be a number of people watching this who are in different sections than the one that shows up here, but you know, it's the same project, so it should work out for everyone pretty well. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to take some time and go through the team project. For most people in this class, this is a very new thing. They maybe did team projects in other college classes, other high school classes. A lot of people have worked on teams at work, but one of the things that's really different about this one is it's a virtual team. You're going to try to do a team in an online environment. Most of you will never end up meeting any of your team members face to face, and yet magically what I'm going to tell you is most people, once you get through the first couple weeks, by the time you're in week 11, for most people this is their favorite part of the whole class. The team project really is a great thing to be able to put on your resume. It's a 21st century skill to be able to actually be involved with a remote team. It's becoming so popular out there. I hear all the time from people that actually have virtual meetings. Where I work does that. We can all be in the same building, but we don't ever go to a room to meet anymore. We all just sit on our computers and meet. It's just more functional. So let's move into, where do I want to go? Let's go right into the project. For those of you that are wondering about it, if you haven't found this out, hey Jessica, oh, webcam, all right. For those of you that are wondering about it, you find the same place as the individual project. You can click on lessons. You go down to course materials. Once you're in course materials, you'll see team project part 1, team project part 2, 3, 4, 5. It's laid out very similarly. The individual project had 6 parts. The team project only has 5 parts. Why is that? Well, the primary reason that is because you had a peer review in the individual project. We don't really need a peer review in the team project because you're all working on a team, and so you will automatically be working with each other. You will have your peer review going. Jessica, I can hear your microphone on now, so I'm assuming you can hear me as well. All right. So what is the team project about? Let's jump right into that. Everyone is on a team. If you aren't already aware, you were on a team starting in about week 4. Let's just do that. That'll cut back some of the feedback. You've been on a team since week 4. Most of you know that you used that team for the peer reviews in week 5, and there were some really good peer reviews. I hope you found that process helpful. Not only is it useful when you get other people to comment on your paper, but it's usually quite helpful when you get to read how other people write. This will give you a good idea on your teams who the good writers are, who the people that struggle a little bit with writing are, who understands APA, who needs a little help with APA. This will help greatly. So what is the project about? Team Research Project Part 1. Let's get right into it. Purpose: to give you an opportunity to examine and assess how, and here's the meat. If you don't catch anything else out of this, here's what you need to catch. The topic for the team project is how management practices change over time. It has nothing to do with ethics. It has nothing to do with corporate social responsibility. That was the individual project. The team project is how management practices change over time. And within that context, the beauty of this project is what you're going to examine are the specific company practices in what we call the 4 functions of management. The 4 functions of management: planning, organizing, leading, and control. So what does all that mean? We'll come back to that. Week 1 or week 7, depending on how you want to look at it, the first week of the team project, you get together with your team. You pick a leader. Most teams have not yet picked a leader. You work as a team to decide on what company you want to choose. What kind of a company can we choose? Any organization that has been in business for at least 20 years. Why 20 years? Because you're assessing how management practices change over time. If they haven't been in business for at least 20 years, you really don't have much time that you're assessing this over. I would also like you to pick companies that are still in business. While Enron may be a very interesting company or may have been an interesting company, Enron is no longer a company. So their management practices are no longer changing over time. Their managers are gone. Enron no longer exists. The people are still out there. Most of them are working somewhere else. But nobody's working for Enron. All right. So week 1, form your team, get to know each other, pick a leader, and then come up with a company that you can all agree on would be interesting to take a look at from a management standpoint. How does this company's management go about planning? How does the company management organize? How does the company lead? How does the company control? Let me quick check. Jessica, Julie, any questions so far? Are we still good?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
All right, good enough. All right. So before I get off of this, what do these 4 functions mean? If you think about it, management is a process. Okay. So we want to change something. We want to do something. The first thing we do, hopefully, as management is we make a plan. Now, I'm guessing everyone watching this can say, oh, no, where I work, we don't plan. We just do something. We wait till the building's on fire, and then we run around trying to figure out who's got the biggest water cooler to put it out. That's a method. It's not really a solid method. If you can't find a company that actually plans, maybe you want to pick a different one for your project. So the first thing good management does is they plan. What do they want to do? Who do I need? What resources do I need? What kind of people do I need? How much money do I need? What kind of equipment do I need? What's my plan? Okay. The second thing is we get organized. We've got the plan. Now we start putting all our ducks in a row. We make sure that we hire the people that we think we need. We make sure that we're getting the people training so they know what they're doing. We make sure that we communicate that plan. One of the real key things is, are we communicating our plan? That's part of organizing. Okay, you're going to find the same thing on your team. Okay, you're going to need a lot of communication to keep your team organized. Third function is leading. This is assuming that we've already put the plan in place. We're starting to roll down now. Whatever the plan was, we're doing something, and we need some leadership. Okay. And finally, this last one is called control. A lot of you may be more familiar with this if I use the word feedback. Control or feedback is that concept of, okay, we've done something. Let's take a look. Is it working? You know, I told my employees that I wanted them to have the shop cleaned up by noon. It's now 11 o'clock. They should be half done, and I noticed that, you know, they're not even 10% done. I've got a control issue. I've got a feedback issue. Either I'm not leading right, or I didn't communicate well, I don't have the right employees, or I just need to make sure they understand what the goal is here. But we need to do something different if we're going to get done by noon. So pick a company, first week of the project, which is going to start on Sunday. Okay, this coming Sunday. You'll turn in your individual project on Sunday, then you'll be done with that, and we will roll right into this team project. first thing you're going to want to do. Make sure your team's got a leader, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and start figuring out who you want to do the paper on, how management practices change over time, and what are management practices, how planning has changed over time at the company you pick, how the organization has changed over time at the company you pick, how the leadership has changed over time at the company you picked, and how the control and feedback has changed over time at the company you picked, and make sure the company you pick has been in business for at least 20 years. All right, once again, we will check with our live participants here. Do we need to do anything more on the first week of the project?
Nope.
Nope. All right, good. Good. Well, then we'll just keep rolling on. Before I go to the rest of the project, let's talk about the team leader issue here. Every team needs a leader, and the reason for that is very simple. Let me see, Jessica. Let me find Jessica real quick. Jessica is in. Jessica, if I remember right, Jessica's on Team 2, and she's in Section 3 of my class. Team 2 sound right to you, Jessica?
Yep.
Yep. Oh, good deal. All right. Jessica, right now on Jessica's team, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 actual students on Jessica's team. However, out of those 9 students, not all of them actually turned in a rough draft in week 4. Not all of them actually did. Matter of fact, only about 1, 2, 3, 4 of those people actively participated in the peer review process. So if I'm Jessica right now, I'm realizing that out of a 9-person team, I've probably got 4 people who are actually going to participate, a couple others who might get on and off and on during the quarter, and a couple who I'm never going to see and hear from. This is why every team needs a leader, because when we get into these team projects, I do not take a submission from every person on the team. So let's say, just for purposes of discussion, that Jessica decides that she will be the leader of her team. If Jessica is her team leader, she will be the only person in week 7 who will submit the team paper to the Dropbox. Okay, that's the primary responsibility of being the team leader. I don't want to get 7 different papers from team 2 in week 7 telling me what company they're doing. This is a team project. It's not a bunch of individuals kind of working parallel. It's a team project. So if Jessica is the leader, that means that if she's going to turn the assignment in by Sunday, she's going to have to expect, and she's going to have to set a deadline of maybe Friday at noon for everyone to respond to her with what company they should do and why. She might even want to set it earlier. You can't expect your team leader to get stuff from you at 9, 10 o'clock Sunday night just because that's when you work. You need to get stuff to your team leader soon enough that your team leader can put something together to submit on time. This is a team. If I'm sounding harsh about this, it's because I've taught this class so many times, and I can absolutely guarantee you in about week 8 or week 9, I'm going to get 1 or 2 people send me an email that they can't participate on a team because they work. Okay? Please don't take this wrong, but this is Rasmussen. Just about every student in this class works. Just about every student in this class has children. Everybody's got a life. You need to figure out how to make this team project work. That's part of the project. So whoever your team leader is, if you are not the team leader, be considerate of the fact that your team leader has time constraints as well. If they're going to turn something in by Sunday, they need to make sure that they have your participation sooner than that. All right. Jessica, does that make sense so far?
Yep, and I'm very worried about only having 4 people.
Actually, that might work out a little better. You'll probably end up with about 5 or 6, but I'll talk about that in a little bit later on because four is doable. Actually, 5 or 6 would be a little bit better. But I made big teams this quarter specifically for that reason. All right, let me shoot forward. What else does the team leader do? Besides turning in the paper, what I ask the team leader to do every week is send me an assessment. It's a short 1 or 2 line thing for each person telling me how that person participated. So here again, if Jessica is our team leader, she's got 9 people. She might send me the names of 3 people and say, these 3 people didn't participate at all. They never logged into the forum. They made no contact. I don't even know if they're still alive. They should get a 0. Then she'll give me the names of maybe 4 other people, and she'll say, these people were great. They really participated 100%. You know, whatever the team gets for a grade on the paper, that's what these people deserve because they were an integral part of the team. And then it's most likely there will be 1 or 2 team members every week that fall somewhere in the middle. They weren't 0 participants. They participated some, but they didn't participate as much as your core group did. And so Jessica will give me those names and say, you know, Billy Bob participated at about 40%. You know, he came to a 1 team meeting, but he never turned in any written work. And, you know, Bobby Sue, she should be about 80%. She did a great job. She turned stuff in, but she doesn't know how to use APA, and I had to go back and look up all of her citations, and I shouldn't have had to do that. You know, whatever it may be. So your team leader will be the one that turns in your written work for the team every week and will send me an assessment every week of team participation, which means that the great bulk of people are not going to be team leaders. If you are not a team leader, what do you do? If you are not a team leader, you're still going to have the written assignment Dropbox every week. What do you put in that written assignment Dropbox? You send me a very short 1 to 2 line self-evaluation. So if your team leader is going to rate your participation, you get a chance to also rate your own participation. So we're not just letting the team leader give you a grade, you also have a say in it. So maybe Jessica's our team leader and she rated you at 80%. You send me a self-evaluation. You say, I think I should get 100% for this week. I attended all the team meetings. I wrote my part of the paper and I turned it in on time. I will take a look at your self-evaluation. I will take a look at Jessica's evaluation of you, and I will then come up with a grade for you for the week. Keeping in mind that you can never get a better grade in total than the team gets on the paper. So if the team only gets 80% on the paper, the best anyone on the team is going to be able to do is 80%. However, that being said, I rarely see that happen. The great bulk of the time, I get phenomenal papers every week from the teams. You've got good people, you're all pulling together, and you do phenomenal on this. You get to where you really like it, and it works well. Okay, let me stop here. Are we still good?
Yep.
All right. Difference between team leader and non-leader makes sense?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So, one of the other things about being team leader is figuring out how you want to organize your team. I've done this class enough that I can tell you that what works the best if you're a team leader, and I'm hoping that all my team leaders are going to watch this on YouTube. If you're a team leader, while I know it's tempting to wait for people to tell you what they want to do, that doesn't work very well. If you're going to be a team leader, you need to, unfortunately, yes, I know this is college, you need to assign tasks to people on your team, and you need to set deadlines. So let's go back to a minute. What are our 4 functions of management? Planning, organizing, leading, and control. Let's say Jessica gets really, really lucky and has 6 active participants on her team. She can assign one of those participants to do all the research around how the company does its planning. Another participant can research all the organizing for the company, another one leading, another control. She might have another person on her team who's really, really good at APA. And so Jessica might find that, well, Jessica as the team leader doesn't mind putting the paper together, but would really like someone else to look over the APA. Or conversely, Jessica might be great at APA. She might assign the initial rough draft to one of the other team members, and then Jessica goes in and reviews it, however it works out. But as a team leader, you need to decide how you want to organize your paper. A lot of teams organize their paper around the 4 functions. You don't have to. Okay? Let's say that the company you decide to do is Ford. For one reason or another, a lot of people love to organize the paper on Ford around their CEOs. Ford has had a lot of different CEOs over different time periods. And so if Jessica's got 6 people on her team and she's doing Ford, she can assign one person to the CEO from 1950 to 1970, another person to the CEO from 1970 to 1980, and I don't know these years, I'm just making them up, and so on and so forth. So you can organize your paper either around the 4 functions, or you can organize your paper chronologically in time order. Either one works. Why does either one work? Because the paper, once again, you're going to find I repeat this a lot, the paper is about how management practices change over time. So looking at that, organizing it chronologically would make sense, but you need to discuss the evolution of a specific company's practices in planning, organizing, leading, and control. So organizing like that would make sense. Most of you, I think, are sharp enough by now to have figured out that you can either use planning, organizing, leading, and control as your main headings and time periods as subheadings, or you could use your time periods as main headings and the planning, organizing, leading, and control as subheadings. Either one works. It will really help you organize the paper. Every quarter I find that I harp on this a little bit more, because the key to a good team experience is going to be how quickly you can get the team organized. If you are the team leader, if you end up, and this is for all the people watching this, if you end up being a team leader, and I will, by the way, I should probably say this, if your team doesn't have a leader by about Wednesday of next week, I'm just going to appoint one. Okay, that's just the way it's going to be, because every team has to have a leader. I would urge you to pick one on your own, but if you can't, I will be happy to pick one. And once you have that leader, the more quickly the team gets organized, whether you want to organize chronologically, organize by function, I don't care. But everyone needs to know what their duties are. Everyone needs to know when it's done by. And this also helps you for the dead weight, if you will, the free riders on the team. And I hate to say this because it's college, but you're going to have, every team will have a couple people that just don't participate. The first week you will assign something to them. It'll get to be Saturday afternoon, Sunday noon. You won't have heard anything. You won't have seen anything. The team leader will be in instant panic because they will realize that, well, the part they assigned to that person isn't showing up and now someone else needs to do it. That's the bad news. The good news is when you get to week 8, which is really weeks 8 and 9 are the meat of the paper, by the time you get to week 8, you know who you can rely on and who you can't. And so you don't assign as much stuff to the unreliable ones. So week 7's a learning curve. Expect to struggle with it a little bit, ask me a lot of questions, and so on. But once you get through it, it works pretty well. Let me take a short break here. All right, we still have Jessica, Julie, questions on team organization, anything like that?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right. So, Jessica, did that help you a little bit with your concern over the 4-member team?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. And I would have to tell you, since I know who's on your team, I've been watching the forum. You obviously there's you and one other person that are trying to figure out who's going to be the leader. I can see at least 2 or 3 other people that I think are going to be pretty good for you, and a couple others that I know are I could probably pick out who's not going to participate as well for you.
Yeah, I think I figured out some of them that aren't going to be active.
Yep, and certainly, obviously, that's the kind of thing we're not going to discuss on a YouTube. But at some point in time, if you end up being the team leader and you've got some questions, shoot me an email. And for all the team leaders that are in that same boat, feel free to send me an email. I'll be able to tell you based on what I've seen who's likely to participate and who isn't. All right, so I think we've covered what the project is about. We've covered primary responsibilities for the team leader, and if you're not the team leader, obviously you are a follower. There's an old saying that's very true: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Okay, so if you're not the leader, that means you need to be a good follower. Turn your stuff in. Have lots of communication with your leader and your other team members. Be on time with your stuff. Be considerate of your other team members' time. Everyone is in this project together. So keep in mind, the whole point of the 5 weeks is to learn how to function in a team. So let's move on to the rest of the project. Week 7, the first week of the project, is simply decide who you're going to do your project on. Someone been in business for 20 years that you can assess their management. Big public companies work well. Ford works well. Disney works well. Pepsi, Coke, any of the big popular names. Nike probably works well. Although I would caution you, you want to find some that have had some changes in leadership. Nike's been Phil Knight pretty much all the time. Apple's another problem because most of Apple, you really only have 2 leaders. You've got Jobs and Cook, and that's really about it. I would suggest taking a look at companies that have maybe had some leadership changes. Lord knows General Motors seems to get a new CEO every couple years lately, so that helps you with the paper if you have some leadership changes. It makes it a little bit easier to do. All right, so that's week 7. Week 8 is the research week, and of course I will continue to do mini lectures starting up again next week, and so we will talk about these assignments again in the mini lectures. Week 8 is the annotated bibliography. Every person on the team needs to turn in a 6-item annotated bibliography, turn it in to the team. Okay, so here again, let's go back. Poor Jessica is getting just used as an example. If she's got a 6-person active team, Jessica is going to get 6 annotated bibliographies, including her own. That will be 36 sources. The team will go through those 36 sources. You're going to have some duplicates. Throw those out. You're going to have a couple others you look at and say, boy, I thought this was maybe going to be good, but I like this better. If Jessica's team starts out with 36 sources, by the time the team leader turns in the annotated bibliography to me in week 8, that might be down somewhere in the 25 to 30 range. But you can see already it's going to be a much larger paper than the individual paper. You're just going to have more people working on it. Okay. But here again, in week 8, each one of you does not turn something into me. Week 8, you turn your annotated bibliography into your team. Your team and your team leader puts together one submission that they send to me. Your team leader will also in week 8 assess who participated and who didn't. You, if you're not the team leader, will send me in the written assignment Dropbox your self-assessment of your participation. You might write something like, I think I should only get 50% this week. We were supposed to do 6-item annotated bibliography, but I only did 3. Okay. But the good news is, since you already did an annotated bibliography, at least we shouldn't have to go through what that is again. Okay, so that's week 8, the second week of the project. Week 9, and here again we'll talk about this more in week 9. Week 9 takes the place of the interview. Week 9 is called primary data. Primary data. It can be an interview, but it doesn't have to be an interview. It's a little broader. So if you're the team leader and you've got 6 people, you might assign 1 or 2 people to actually find an interview, just like we did in the individual project. You might have another 1 or 2 people assigned to go through the SEC filings. You will find the 10K filings are great sources of primary data. Okay, 10Ks, annual reports, that sort of thing are great sources of primary data. Basically, primary data is anything that comes directly from the company or one of its people. So if one of its people does an interview, yep, that's primary. The SEC reports, those are primary. Press releases, those would be primary. All sorts of things like that. So, you know, if you've got 5, 6 people, you don't have to do 5 or 6 interviews. You will, again, have a wide variety of primary sources for week 9, which is the 3rd week of the project. Week 10, which is the 4th week of the project, is a rough draft. Okay, that should be pretty self-explanatory. You picked a company in week 7. You did a bunch of research in week 8. You did a bunch more research in week 9. Now week 10 is the rough draft. Here again, I think if you think about it, if you have organized your team up front, either organized it chronologically or organized it by function, the rough draft is much easier. If you organize by function, then whoever you assigned planning to writes 3-4 pages on how planning has changed over time. The person that has organizing writes 3 or 4 pages about how organizing has changed over time. As the team leader, you get all of this stuff. You've now got 12, 14, 16 pages of stuff. All you need to do is come up with an introduction, maybe some transition sentences between the sections, and you've got a whole lovely rough draft. Okay? But if you haven't taken the time up front to organize the team, then the rough draft becomes a real problem. Here again, the week 10 mini lecture, I will talk about this as well to remind people about it. And of course, the YouTube for this thing will just sit there permanently throughout the course of the project. And finally, then, week 11, as you would guess, the week that everyone's looking forward to. Week 11 is the final version of the project. The only reminder I put in here is week 11. For those of you who've been at Rasmussen for a while, you know week 11 always ends on Friday. So just a heads up, even though all the other assignments are due on Sundays, in week 11 everything is due on Friday. That's not something I set. That's set by the college. So I can't give you an extension. It simply isn't there. Friday is when the quarter ends, and Friday is when things need to be due by. But normally that's pretty easy. I will read your rough drafts as quickly as I get them in week 10. So if you turn it in Saturday instead of Sunday, you will get my comments back, you know, depending on what time Saturday, you'll get them back for sure by sometime Sunday. So most teams have no trouble at all converting the rough draft into a final draft. Okay, let's check again. All right, Jessica and Julie, I think I've covered most things on the project, but I always know as soon as I ask someone says, well, what about this? So what would you like to know that I have missed?
I can't think of anything right now.
All right.
Me either.
You guys are good?
Yep.
All right. Well, I would think by now I'd be getting better at this. I've done it quite a bit, but we'll see. As always, for everyone, I will post this YouTube out there. I'll post it in the announcements. I'll post it probably in the team forums, I think. Maybe not right away, but it'll get there. Hopefully people will watch this. We'll get enough people on each team that they'll realize how important it is to get a team leader and how important it is to get the team organized. I cannot stress this enough. I don't care if you organize it chronologically or if you organize it by function, but please try to get it organized. And like I say, if you can't come up with a leader, that's not a problem. Let me know, and I will go through the people on the team and pick someone that I think will make the best leader for the team. Here again, now that we're 5 weeks into the quarter, it's a little bit easier for me to figure out who's probably going to be able to do a better job leading and who isn't. It really isn't any more work being the leader than being a follower. And normally if people watch this video, what they realize is that if you're the leader, you actually have a little bit more control over the project and over your grade. So if you're someone who's quite grade oriented, you might consider wanting to be the leader because it just gives you a little bit more control. Just saying, whatever you want to do with that. Otherwise, let's see, is there anything else? We covered that. We covered what the project's about. We've talked about what leaders need to do. We've talked about what the followers need to do. I have to be honest with you all. I'm pretty sure I've missed something, but for the life of me, I don't know what it is. So I guess I will just let it go. We will. One last chance here. Julie or Jessica, any last-minute thoughts, last-minute questions you want to share?
Nope. I can't think of anything.
All right. Well, with that then, for those of you that are watching this, like I say, you can watch it over and over and over again, Yahoo. And I will get this done tonight, get it posted so people can start seeing it. Email me. I do my best to check emails several times a day, so normally if you email me, you get a response back fairly quickly. If you send me an email right after I logged off, you might wait a while, but I do try to get back to it pretty quickly. Jessica, I see it says, I have a question. Do you want to do it on the mic, or do you want to just type it in the chat box?
Sure. I have a question as far as controversy in the team.
Okay.
If a leader finds controversy in the team, is that something that we discuss with you, or is that something we need to organize between our own members?
And by controversy, I assume you're saying team members that don't seem to want to get along?
Yes.
Yep. If you are the team leader, if you feel it's something that you can handle on your own within the team, by all means do so. On the other hand, if you feel it's something that's starting to escalate, that's tearing the team apart, please feel free to involve me. I do watch all of the team forums, okay, and most of you have figured that out because I've ended up responding to someone in just about every team forum, so you've seen my posts in there in red. So I do kind of watch that. If I see something getting a little out of hand, I will also try to step in first. But otherwise, if you have anything at all that, if you end up being the leader and you have any issues at all, you can always bring them to me. If you're not the leader and you bring an issue to me, quite probably the very first thing I'm going to tell you to do is, talk to your team leader about it.
Okay.
That work?
Yep.
All right. Oh, and the other thing I should point out for those of you that are wondering, since we did this, thanks for asking a question because it allowed me to think of something else. Team communication. You are not required to use the team forums if you don't want to. Okay. The team forum to me is sort of that last ditch effort because it's in the online class. And if that's what people can come up with, if that's the best you can do, that's fine. By all means, use it. But I've had groups that have had tremendous success forming private Facebook groups. I've had groups that have had tremendous success with Google Share, Google Docs, Google Plus Hangouts, that sort of thing. This particular thing that I'm using for the thing tonight is actually called GoToMeeting, and you can get a 30-day free trial from GoToMeeting. So I probably would wait until maybe the middle of week 7 or end of week 7 if you think it's something you want to do. But if you want to hold team meetings doing it, you just go to www.gotomeeting.com, sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's really easy to use. And a lot of you, I have to say, you're out there working and you've got things like this that you use on the job. You might have some software that you use on the job. Please do not feel obligated to use the team forum. Not everyone likes the team forum, and I don't want you to feel like you're being stifled by having to use that. So the key is to find a way to get good, consistent team communication. And if the forum is not working, find something else. Worst case scenario, I know this is going to sound like a horrible idea, you could actually pick up the phone and call each other. I know. I mean, who knew you could use the phone to talk anymore? But I've heard that people still do that. So, but find a way to communicate, even if you're not the leader. Okay, and I can't stress this enough. For those of you, I mean, I've got 3 sections of this class, 3 teams in each class. That means there's going to be 9 leaders. I have about 30 people in each class. That means there's going to be about 20-some people in each class that are not going to be leaders. If you are not the leader, you are a follower. You still have a responsibility to maintain communication. Please, please, please do not expect your team leader to carry this thing for you. That's not what it's set up like. Maybe that's what worked in high school, but that's not what we're going to do here. Okay, so maintain communication. If your leader schedules a meeting and you can't be there, ask them to send you a copy of the meeting if they did it in Google Hangout. Ask them to post something somewhere, send you an email, whatever it is. Keep up the communication. The more you communicate as a team, the easier this is. Now, I can guarantee you at the end of the quarter, I get there's an evaluation in week 11 on your team experience that everyone does. The people that have the best team experience to a T talk about how good their team communicated. And the ones that have a horrible experience talk about the lack of communication. And usually then they say, well, the team leader didn't communicate. And I will point out the fact one last time that communication is in fact a two-way exercise. So be sure you're doing that. One last check. Julie, Jessica, anything else?
Nope.
No? You sure?
Nope.
All right. Tell you what, I'm going to shut off the recording here. Hang on a minute.